Hello, you're watching Play for Fun. My name's Nino, and today we're going to talk about CD Projekt Red's latest Witcher game, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 is an open world RPG with a great story and almost no loading times. But before I start talking about the actual game, I'd like to first talk about CD Projekt Red. These guys started earning the fans' love and respect in the past with consumer-friendly practices like no DRM. With The Witcher 3 now, they are also offering free DLCs, which is on its own a way to show how different they are from companies like EA and Ubisoft. There will be 16 of them, actually 4 of them already came out, and it won't matter what version of the game you have, all owners can get them for free. The fans love them, and it's really not hard to see why. With 1.5 million sales within the first week, the game has almost reached the 1.7 million sales achieved by all the previous games together already. Even when you start the game, you can see the consumer friendliness by being prompted to skip all the logos and go straight to the action. I don't really actually remember many games doing that as of late. One can say many things about CD Projekt Red and all would be positive. These guys are awesome, but let's take a look at the actual game. In The Witcher 3, you follow the story of Geralt of Rivia, who wants to find and save a young woman named Ciri from the hands of the Wild Hunt. Ciri is like a daughter to him and has special magical powers allowing her to move between worlds. This short recap of the story doesn't sound like much, but the way it's told is where the game really shines. While you will spend most of the time trying to actually find Ciri as Geralt, sometimes the game will grant you the control over Ciri, for example when you relive a memory. These segments are fun and really help to understand the story better, which is always a huge plus for me. Ciri does control quite differently from Geralt due to her abilities to teleport during combat, making her an absolute killing machine. Graphically, the game has it all. It uses the Red Engine 3, which is a 64-bit exclusive and provides all the bells and whistles. The game looks beautiful no matter how you look at it. There's lots of vegetations and NPCs, and it's almost shocking how this huge world needs almost no additional loading times. You can enter a building, travel from A to B without any of them. Only when special quests require cutscenes, you travel between territories, or fast travel will you ever see a loading screen. Thankfully, those are short. The graphics will quickly show you the plight of the people in each territory. War, monsters, and poverty. It has all taken its toll on these people. While the NPCs will often repeat, they are still very well done and pleasing to the eye. The animations are very fluid and almost never seem stiff. The faces as well as bodies are designed masterfully, giving the characters a wide variety of appearances. There's a lot of fan service in the game, and the male players will be happy to know that there will be lots of boobs coming their way. Some of these boobs may or may not be so pleasing to the eye due to the age of the specific character, but even here we can see how much work went into making the world believable. Old characters actually have specially designed models fitting their age. The game offers a transition from night to day, which can influence the game in many ways, but most importantly simply looks great. If your system can afford the ultra settings, you will be looking at one of the prettiest games you have seen so far. Another great graphical improvement is the fact that Geralt's beard actually grows as time passes. You won't be able to make a Santa Claus since it does have a growing limit, but it creates a more realistic feeling and demands shaving from time to time if you wish for him to look decent. With one of the free DLCs came a few new hair and beard styles for him as well. Though I'm personally more of a purist here and prefer his classic look, the main character looks older, wiser, and more raw than ever, which is good because it's fitting with the tone of the game. The combat system now offers dismemberment, which really adds another layer of oomph to Geralt's fighting style. The gore is never too much and doesn't feel like it's being added just as a shock factor though. The game's graphics would be worth very little if the sound was not living up to the expectation. Thankfully, all the things I disliked about The Witcher 2 sound have been fixed. Some of you might remember the intro song while the game tells you about the story at the beginning. More like the intro shrieking, if I may call it that way, rather than a song. But don't take my word for it. Here, listen to it yourselves. The good news is the song you just heard is a thing of the past and won't happen again, I hope. In any case, The Witcher 3 does not have a single song I could complain about. Everything fits perfectly, the voice acting is spot on and really helps you dive deeper into the game. It's so good in fact that it made me feel sorry for characters I was disliking at first and made me laugh out loud many times. And speaking about laughing, the game's humor is spot on. From the funny ways the rock trolls talk to the funny ways other NPCs do. It's medieval setting, so there are lots of really stupid people with funny things to say. So if you value humor as I do, you can expect to have your funny bone tickled quite often. The game mechanics have been changed significantly for the better in this third game. Players will be happy to know that the lame quick time events are now gone for good. Geralt's appearance actually changes constantly as he swaps armors and weapons. While the game was sadly optimized for consoles, it looks much better than the previous ones. The menus are easier to navigate and the crafting has been upgraded in many ways. You will still have the occasional useless function designed for console players, like the target lock-on, but it will be easy to just ignore it. There's almost no point in the game where you will actually have to use it. Geralt now only needs to craft potions once. Then you can just replenish them by meditating. The strongest alcohol you carry will always be used for that. This means that in essence your oils, bombs and potions are available almost at any time, which is really great. There are almost no classical health potions. Instead, the game will motivate you to actually buy food and drink or hunt and scavenge for it. At first it seemed like a strange decision, but as I was playing it made more and more sense. This adds another layer of strategy to the game since health management becomes a much bigger issue and requires careful consideration. I remember beating the first two games without using potions, oils or any crafting whatsoever and barely any signs. In case some of you are new, the signs are actually the spells Witchers can use. In Witcher 3 you will often face opponents for which proper preparation is key. This is one of the aspects I wish to mention. The enemies in the game don't scale with you. This means that you are in an open world, begging you to explore it, but hiding lots of dangers along the way. For some people, such as myself, this is one of its strongest points. The Witcher also levels up quite slowly. The game doesn't give you much in terms of XP indication, so for a part of the game I actually thought that combat grants no experience whatsoever. Just by chance I happened to level up while fighting, and this is when I realized it actually does. Still, I don't feel like this is a bad thing because it adds to the cinematic feeling of the game. Stats appearing somewhere during gameplay seems like they would actually disturb more, since this game is not nearly as much about stats as it's about skill. I was surprised to find out that there are monsters many levels over mine, 15 plus levels over it, which I can still kill though. This, however, was not an easy feat. If you go exploring and find guarded treasure, for example, chances are that the guarding monster will be a much higher level than you are. While running away is still a viable option, those with a fire inside of them will gladly invest 30 minutes or more into fighting and slaying that beast, making you feel like a badass at the end of the day. Just be sure to bring along a lot of patience if you go down that path. Most of them can kill you in a single hit, and using the shield sign Quen is an absolute must. Fighting these tough opponents at lower levels is where the game's skill requirement really goes up. Remember when I mentioned that I've beat the first two games without alchemy and crafting? Well, that's no longer the case here. Unless you use the right oils, potions before the fight, you're really in for a beating. At times I felt like I was playing Dark Souls all over again. Thankfully, defeating an enemy grants you an entry in the bestiary, which I highly recommend reading, because it will really actually tell you how the enemy's weaknesses are and what you should be doing to defeat them much easier. Another way of upgrading the bestiary is simply reading books you find along the way. When exploring, you will be looking for several things, but besides the occasional random quest giver, most points of interest will be pretty much the same. Kill some monsters, get a reward for it. The completionists among us still love it and will try to uncover all of the map secrets at any price, boosting the game time significantly. The good news is that I found those to be much more fun and challenging than, for example, Dragon Age Inquisitions, but then again everything in The Witcher 3 is much better than that. Only when I reached Skellige did I decide to skip some of them, the ones in the water. Just takes too long and it's literally always the same. Lots of annoying monsters that you have to fight either while swimming, using only your crossbow, or while on the boat, using only the crossbow again. Also, there are just way too many out there. Of course, the points of interest in the land section of the islands are much better and also actually still offer you the possibility of finding the best reward of them all, a place of power, which when used grants you a skill point which you can then use to level up your skills. The skill system is also improved. You now have a more traditional grid with sections for each skill type. However, you also have a limit to how many skills can actually be active. As you level up, more of these skill slots open, as well as special mutagen slots, which allow you to gain additional stats by placing the proper color of mutagen in them. Mutagens can be upgraded through alchemy. While finding places of power can be a great way to add a few more skill points, the best option is to level up. And if you want to do that, you will have to finish quests and kill lots of monsters. The game is a bit strange when it comes to that, because you actually end up leveling much slower while at lower levels than you will at the end of the game. The reason for that being simply that leveling is mostly affected by quests, and the ones at the start give very little experience. The quests are also divided in different sections. The main quests are what will drive the main story forward and at some point end the game. You'll want to do a few of those from time to time. The secondary quests usually tell smaller stories of their own, are very interesting and entertaining, and add to the value of the game. The Witcher contracts are where you'll face a challenge every now and then and get to use the Witcher Sense, which is basically the Witcher's medallion from the second game, but without the cooldown and with a more constant effect. It will reveal clues for quests, herbs, loot, and even let the Witcher locate nearby monsters, since it also improves his hearing greatly. You will usually question people about the monsters you're about to kill, investigate the scene of the incident, and follow trails. Some of these quests can be quite amusing, while others are standard fare. Still worth doing though, since you can also bargain over your payment and learn how to defeat the various monsters in the game. One of the best side activities remains the card game known as Gwent. The Witcher has always used some kind of gambling minigame, but never before has that been so much fun and so deep. It's almost a game of its own, and I found myself ignoring all of the quests and just looking for people to challenge in order to gain new cards. It's really a lot of fun. The computer opponents will sometimes really recognize your strategy and make some interesting and smart moves. At other times, they will risk it all only to lose because they ran out of luck. I've had cases in other games where I felt like the AI always knows what cards I'm holding. Here, this has never been the case. You also face several quests which involve fist fighting and racing, the latter of which is one of the few aspects of the game I actually have a problem with. Riding your horse can really suck at times. While they did implement a mechanic where you have to just hold one button and the horse will actually follow the road it's running on, which reminds me of Red Dead Redemption, the Witcher's horse seems to be kind of stupid. For no reason it will squeal and stop running in the middle of a race or random gallop. During races this would actually happen, often making them at times harder than they need to be. It has a stamina bar and a fear bar. The first is obvious: once you run out of stamina, the horse slows down significantly. The second is important when in combat. The Witcher can actually attack from the horse, but if you get hit a few times, the fear bar will fill up and the Witcher will be thrown off the back of the horse in a not so elegant way. The horse just doesn't feel right at the times, and I often found myself running and using fast travel as often as I could. Fast travel enables you to teleport to locations you have already found. Each of them has a special landmark sign. You need one of those to actually fast travel to another one, so it's not available at all times when on land. On water, you can use it from anywhere while on a boat, but you may only fast travel to specific locations on the map marked by an anchor. This still makes traversing the huge world much more comfortable. As the story progresses, new locations will open up. You get to meet other Witchers and characters from previous games, which is always welcome for fans of the series. Your Witcher will get stronger, but so will Ciri, and at some point, when all of her abilities are available to use, she becomes unstoppable. Playing as her is a lot of fun. During the story, you will get to make decisions which will actually affect the outcome of the game significantly. As always, the option remains to import your old save from the previous Witcher games. Should you not have any for whatever reason, the game has actually provided a very interesting way of asking you about these old choices, so all you need to do is remember or think them up, and the game will actually adjust itself accordingly. You have several endings ranging from good to bad. At times you'll get to make choices in side missions as well, so I advise you to save often, since some of the consequences are not very clear from the dialogue options. Things tend to sometimes escalate a bit too quickly, so be sure to have a load close by because it simply sucks to choose a conversation options which you really weren't expecting and having to suddenly fight against another character you actually like and want to keep alive. And this is where my second complaint comes, the loading of the game. If you simply die the normal way, the game will straight go to the loading screen, which is not long. However, should you initiate a load without being dead, the game will show you a comic style drawing and recap some of what has happened so far. This is actually quite nice the first time you see it, but after the third it becomes really tedious. What bothers me is that sometimes you can skip it by pressing buttons, other times you can't and it's absolutely random. And since we're talking about the game's negatives, let's talk bugs. I've never seen an open world game without bugs. It's just too big to make sure everything runs smoothly. However, the question always is, are there game breaking ones? In all of the game I found a few cosmetic ones which were funny, but no game breaking ones. In the 120 hours I've played, the game crashed once, and that was because of my using recording software and alt tap a lot. The only part that annoyed me was one side quest, a druid, who's still offering me a quest, but whenever I talk to him nothing happens. He refuses to start the quest, although he has an exclamation mark next to his name and on the minimap. It's still an awesome result and probably the best I've seen so far in a game this big. If you compare it to Skyrim, where you had to use command lines to actually open a door in order to complete an important quest, it's miles away. CD Projekt Red didn't compromise at any point with this game. It's bigger and better in every aspect from previous Witcher games. What's really surprising to me is how much better it is compared to any of the recent RPGs that came out. It would be insulting to compare it to the inferior Dragon Age Inquisition. While that was also a good game, it's like comparing a plane to a Lamborghini when it comes to speed. And even a game like Skyrim has to bow its head in respect to The Witcher. The Wild Hunt is mature, raw, with a much better story and darker than any other RPG before it, making it the masterpiece it is and the perfect game for a mature audience. Its powerful narrative will make you feel a wide array of feelings for its characters, and you will be drawn into the world presented before you, investing hours after hours of your time into it and loving every moment of it. CD Projekt Red has earned its top spot in my personal rank list with their consumer-friendly practices, cool attitude, and this phenomenal game. If you haven't played The Witcher 3 yet, do yourself a favor and buy it now. I like to recommend GOG.com because these guys are the real no DRM pioneers and we need to support them as well. Any other virtual copy, be it Steam or Origin, is to be avoided if possible. Oh, and one last thing, be sure to explain to your family, friends, and especially your girlfriend that you will not be available for about a week. That way people won't be angry at you when you don't spend time with them. And again, I say especially your girlfriend. I'd like to thank you for watching my review of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and remind you to always, and I mean always, play for fun.